you could say, edition of Take Two, here live from the Beaumont Enterprise studios, makeshift. I am Avi Zalen. To that side, I can never do left and right, it just confuses me, is David Barry, as is Jared Ainsworth. And we're going to pretty much recap the high school basketball season in the area for you guys real quick. You may or may not be aware that East Chambers ended up being the last team standing in Southeast Texas as Tremaine Hancock in his first season advances to state, goes perfect 14-0 in District 25 2A. But, there's other teams obviously at play. Some maybe we were expecting to go a little bit farther. Some maybe exceeded our expectations. So, Jared, talk to me and talk to us, I guess, rather, about, some of those teams that, you thought that were going to reach the state tournament and didn't.
Well, for sure, on the girls' side, I thought Ozan. Last year they went 36-0 before losing in the regional finals to Barbers Hill. So 36-1, bringing back 4 really good seniors. Thought this would be the year they'd have a chance, but what hurt them was guard play. And it wasn't all their fault. They lost their starting point guard, Michaela Beckett, a junior, the day after Thanksgiving against Houston Wheatley. And then about 3 days later in practice, their backup point guard, Chastity Thomas, also to a knee injury. So, they played most of the year without their 2 point guards, and they brought in some sophomores off JV. Nakia Jones, who can do pretty much everything on the court, had to play a lot at the point as well as in the post. But against Pflugerville Connolly, they had 34 turnovers. I think that hurt them.
Ooh. Yeah. And 34 turnovers, they'll do it.
And I wouldn't put it all on
Lamar.
I wouldn't put it all on their guards. I know they just, it happened to be a bad game. Coach Tammy Walker-Brown said, they were trying to have too good of a game. I suppose they were trying to be too intense. They were quite impressive most of the year. Went undefeated in the district as well. Another team that I thought had a shot at state was the Silsbee boys.
Really.
Of course, the team that I knew would probably be standing in their way was Houston Yates. They're in the regional quarterfinals. If it wasn't for Yates, Silsbee, I thought, would have gone to the state semifinals. Chris Elam, Jordan Holmes, the best perimeter duo in the area, in my opinion, and they have several other guys.
Really talented.
So Yates was just, obviously the best team in Region 3.
Yeah. Gotcha. David, what about you?
I'd have to say the team that I most expected was Kuntz in 2A, just because, they went through most of the season at, they were ranked number 1 in Class 2A. But the thing is they had a really tough region, and they had a bye in the bye district play, but the first game that they play is against Tatum.
Mm-hmm.
They were number 3 in the state. And Tatum, they already beat Kuntz earlier in the season, so it's one of those things where they had their number this season. And honestly, even if they had beaten Tatum, they would have had state champion White Oak in that same region. So, it was tough for Kuntz, but, I'm sure if you ask, their team, their coach, they fell short of expectations. And I'd also say Central boys because, although they were young, they were really talented. They just ran into a Georgetown team that frustrated them.
And then Nederland shortly after.
Yeah, Nederland after that. Central was easily the more athletic team, but Georgetown, they stuck to their ways defensively. And, after that, they just, they made a great comeback at the end. They just couldn't do it. But they have more, and we'll talk about it in a little bit.
Yeah, something about the Georgetown Eagles in Southeast Texas.
They're
in every sport, they've just got their number.
Yep.
Well, what are you going to do? Moving on, Jared, you talked a little bit about how Ozan suffered a lot from injuries. Is that something that they can overcome looking forward to the next season and that maybe they can grow from and have more success, you think?
Well, they definitely have a lot of young girls coming back. You look at all those sophomores they played this year. They're just not going to have a lot of experience. They lose Nakia Jones, Sanquisha Rawls, Beloved Brown, and Alexandria Moulton, their core, those 4 seniors. So I wouldn't pencil them in for a run going to state next year. They're, of course, going to be a contender in 24A, as they always are. It'll be interesting to see what they can do, all those sophomores coming back.
Gotcha. David, what about you? Or any bounce back stories?
You know what? Like I said, Central, their boys team is going to be a force to be reckoned with because, Etorian Wilridge, the 24A Defensive Player of the Year, Nigel Pearson was just a freshman. And they're still going to grow. They're just going to get better. I'm sure they're going to use the loss to Georgetown as motivation throughout offseason AAU
Oh, yeah.
going into next year. And the Hardin Jefferson girls, they lose a little bit, but they also return for her senior year, Keisha Broussard, who was probably, honestly, one of the best overall players in Southeast Texas this season.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say they'll be there as long as she's healthy and playing a consistent game. But yeah, I'd have to say Central boys, Hardin Jefferson girls.
And we talk about expectations versus reality, and it's, I think, a really, really difficult thing to get a grasp of. In high school athletics in particular, you look at a team like Kuntz. I think is a perfect example. They really steamroll everyone, in district, and then boom, first game they play in state tournament, and they're knocked out. Just like that. For whatever reason, and sometimes it's just hard to kind of gauge where a team is at. When they're just kind of rolling through district. Ozan girls is another perfect example of that, kind of almost the same deal. But like these two guys said, next year there's always next season, and a lot of these players are returning. A lot of young talent gelling together a little bit more, and we could see some major improvements. So, guys, thank you again for watching, and keep it right here on BeaumontEnterprise.com for all your latest local breaking sports news. Thanks.